عمر بعفي، عمر الله يخليك يا عمر بعفي، عمر بعفي كلمني محمد بعد العطل، محمد بعد بموتاه.
تعالوا عشان اقتلكم وعشان ادبكم للبحر، للسمك ياكلكم والطيور.
This is Omar Ghalib, a Yemeni fisherman who was kidnapped by Saudi fighters and then tortured while out in his boat late one evening in Yemen's port city of Hodeidah.
وصلنا للبحر محل ما نصطاد رأسا، فوصلنا وقت الغداء يعني الساعة 2، عاد احنا بادئين نسيب الأقلاب نطش للسمك، فأجت علينا الطائرة هبت دورة زي كذا وكانت ترمي على كل قارب 3 طلقات 4 طلقات من الطائرة رأسا، فاجتمعنا احنا من كثر ما احنا خايفين اجتمعنا ورسلونا فيبر بحري من حقهم وفيهم 6 أشخاص.
The fishermen all hung large white flags at the back of their boats, signaling to the Saudi coalition battleships that they were simply fishermen and mean no harm. Despite making their clear mark, Omar told Mint Press that 6 soldiers on board a gunboat approached them and began opening fire on them before all 10 fishermen surrendered.
تكلم معي يقول لي ليش ما تصطادوا انتوا، ايش اللي وداكم للمكان ذا رأسا المجرى، انتوا دارين انه المكان ذا خطر، انه المكان ذا خوف. قلنا له احنا نصطاد هنا بعد السمك الهامور، بعد السمك اللي هو معروف يعني غالي. فقالوا روحوا اصطادوا عقبان، جزيرة عقبان. احنا قلنا لهم احنا مكان هنا عقبان محل السمك الديراك. قال اقسم بالله تدروا انه عدلكم عمر، انا اعطيت اوامر للاباتشي انها تطخكم تقتلكم يعني. قالوا انتم مع علي عفاش ولا مع الحوثيين؟ قلنا لهم لا مع ذولا ولا مع ذولا، احنا صيادين طالبنا الله.
But it didn't seem to matter what Omar or the other fishermen had to say. The soldiers had made up their minds and were determined to terrorize the men.
سلمنا انفسنا، قالوا انزلوا للبحر. نزلنا للبحر، فتشوا الزورق، جلسوا يعني حوالي 2 ساعة هم بيفتشوا في نفس الزورق. اجتمعنا كلنا، طلعوا احنا في نفس القارب حقهم، لا داخل البارجة جنب البارجة، عاد احنا ما وصلناش احنا، يشتوا يدوا احنا للبارجة. لبسوا احنا اكياس سود وكلبشوا احنا اول مرة كلبوش بلاستيكي.
Despite the fact that the Saudi soldiers found nothing on their boat, the fishermen were accused of being Houthi collaborators, leading the Saudi forces to take the men to a prison torture room inside a Saudi battleship where they were then stripped down naked.
كل 2 دخلوهم في مكان ومعه 3 4 يعني من اصحابهم رأسا. انا 3 اللي كانوا موجودين عندي.
ايش جنسياتهم؟
ايوه جنسيتهم 2 اللي شفتهم انا، يعني واحد سعودي، وبعد الضرب ذا كله يعني كان واحد الدكتور مصري ذا نفسه رأسا مصري. فكان ضرب يعني مبرح، بطحونا زي كذا يعني بطحونا، وبقيت بين الفوطة بس رأسا الفوطة حق البحر. لما بطحونا كان يقلدوا وانا مكلبش وباطح زي كذا ويديني ورا وباطح وهم يضربوا، ضربونا اخر شيء يعني قمت.
كيف يستخدموا الضرب؟
الضرب بيده يعني بكيبل اسود ويضربك اخر يعني جسمي ولع، انا خلاص اشتعل من كثرة الضرب. قلت ارحمونا خلاص يعني ديمي حسيته كأنه ولع.
2 children accompanying their fishermen fathers were also present and taken prisoner as well.
فقمت كذا حسيت اللي خلفي طيار الأباتشي رأسا، شفت البدل الميري فوق وذا والنجم موجودة يعني هذا نفس الطيار. فلما قمت أنا أقول ارحمونا خلاص، بز سيخ كبير حديدة وناولنا باب يدي، قال لي أنت يماني كلب، أنتوا نفسكم حوثيين رأسا. قال أنتوا حوثيين نفسا. قلنا لهم إحنا لا حوثيين ولا شيء. المهم
Ghalib's horrific story is one that has been shared by many fishermen over the course of Yemen's brutal war, waged by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and funded in large part, if not entirely, by the United States against the Yemeni resistance group Ansarullah after the latter took power in 2015. For the past 3.5 years, the Saudi-UAE coalition, with the support from the United States and the United Kingdom, has relentlessly bombed civilian targets including schools, hospitals, clinics, water treatment facilities, and even school buses. But little attention has been given to the devastating reality fishermen, who have become frequent targets, have to live each day, and it's no accident. This is part of the U.S. Saudi-led coalition's long-standing efforts to wage war against Yemen's food supply. In the first year of the war alone, the coalition bombed over 350 farms, factories, food storage sites, markets, and other agriculture infrastructure, resulting in heavy damage to Yemen's portion of arable land, a lifeline for its people. With neither farmers nor fishermen safe from coalition attacks, famine has become a massive crisis in Yemen, further exacerbated by the coalition's blockade of the country since March of 2015, when Saudi Arabia initially launched its war against Yemen. This blockade prevented food from being imported into the troubled nation. The gravity of the situation is starkly revealed by recent warnings from the United Nations, which has cautioned that an estimated 18.4 million Yemenis, that's 2/3 of the country's entire population, now risk starving to death. However, thanks to the coalition's naval blockade of Yemen, Yemen's fishermen are arguably in an even more precarious situation, as they're being targeted by coalition fighter jets and naval vessels alike. As a result, since the war began, at least 200 fishing boats have been damaged or destroyed, and over 334 fishermen are believed to have been killed by coalition ships and helicopters. This amounts to over $5.6 billion in total losses from Yemen's Red Sea fishing sector. The US-backed Saudi coalition against Yemen has drastically increased its attacks against Hodeidah province since June of 2018, as part of its Operation Golden Victor to retake Hodeidah port from Yemeni forces. The 2.3 million people who live in Hodeidah make it the second largest in population among Yemeni provinces.
Madam President, recently, and despite all our efforts, the pace of war has increased. We meet at a time when the focus of the war is the battle for Hodeidah, and what military people tell me about Hodeidah is that it has become the center of gravity of the war.
Since Saudi Arabia's Operation Golden Victor began, the number of displaced people from Hodeidah has reached up to 1 million people, all who are escaping daily threats from airstrikes, Saudi-backed mercenaries, famine, and poverty. Despite this horrifying reality, these incidents haven't stopped the remaining fishermen from Al Rabsa neighborhood, where Omar lives, from going back on their boats to seek sustenance and make an honest living from the sea, as they have been for generations.
خلاص نفسه كل هذه مواقف يعني حصلا علينا يعني في البحر وكان احنا ما قنعناش لانه يا اخي في الرف ما في الا غير البحر.
But Omar admits that he's haunted by the horrifying memories of witnessing those closest to him die.
فأيام برضو كذلك كنت اشتي اروح البحر مرة ثانية. درينا اليوم الصباح انا كنت بروح على اساس اليوم السابق اللي شاروح بين الصباح. روحوا بناس موتى من البحر 5 قوارب. هذول اللي ضربوهم في السوابع الان في الاسبوعين هذه اللي راحت ضربوهم في السوابع. فالباقية ضربت على قارب قرح يعني لما لهبن من كثرة البترول موجود والسامان ذا لهبت يعني ونزلت غرقا يعني.
One of those killed was Omar's brother. It's a day his mother Miriam will never forget.
تسحب رجلك
I watched them all flocking to the house to visit me, so my heart was naturally unsettled. I told them I can sense something. What's wrong? Tell me. They told me that there was nothing wrong, but my heart was telling me that something was wrong. A mother's heart can never lie. I see them anxious. I insisted that they tell me what's going on, but nobody said a word. I eventually held Omar and asked him, "What's going on? Please tell me." He then said, "Muhammad was killed." So I said, "How?" And he replied, "An airstrike." I screamed and cried, saying, "My son died! My son died!" I passed out and it all went foggy in my mind before being rushed to the hospital. 4 young men went missing, including my son, my husband's brother, and 2 other men who were about the same age as my son's. They searched for the bodies and only found them on the 5th day. My son's body was so swollen I couldn't recognize him. I've been suffering from mental and physical pain and sickness ever since that day. I cry throughout the day and night.
This is how it is for too many Yemeni mothers and families torn apart by the years of violence and death. Omar is the only one of the fishermen who was able to speak with MIT Press. As we tried to enter the Al Rabsa neighborhood to take more testimonies from the other fishermen for the story, clashes intensified as Saudi planes continued to bombard the province. For the remaining residents of Hodeidah, and perhaps the entire country of Yemen, it's only a matter of time until their last remaining lifeline for food is stripped away, causing the wiping out of an entire nation right before our eyes at the hands of the US-backed, Saudi-led coalition.